My name's Adam, and I'm an artist out of northern Wisconsin. Now this video is basically 2 videos in one. The first 13 minutes of this entire video, I'm going to be catching you guys up, fully up to speed with Neuma tattoo supplies. I'm going to be telling you guys about all the parts on their website, what all the parts do and everything, and how the machine works. And I'm also going to be talking about the Neuma 5 and how they're going to make it different from the Neuma 4 currently. And then the second half of this video, after around 13 minutes and 30 seconds into this video, I am actually going to do a full unboxing and review on the Neuma 4 Modus, so you guys can kind of get my opinions on the tattoo machine. The Neuma 5 tattoo machine is right off on the horizon. Carson Hill, the owner and creative mind behind Neuma, just did a podcast with Fireside Tattoos on YouTube, and he explained all the new innovations that they are going to be doing with the Neuma 5 tattoo machine, and they even said that they are in production, making it right now. Any day now, any hour, any minute, they can drop the Neuma 5 tattoo machine. After watching that interview with Fireside Tattoos, interviewing Carson Hill, I have full on become a Neuma bro. And I actually have a very nice, awesome subscriber that sent me this. This is the Neuma 4 Modus, and I've been testing it to try to refresh myself and get me up to speed for when the Neuma 5 comes out. Justin Reid, right here on Instagram, he actually got the Neuma 4 Modus for Black Friday, and he actually sent it to me so I could make this video. Make sure you guys go down into the description below this video and click on the link that will take you over to Justin Reid's Instagram page and leave him a follow because he's awesome. If I leave anything out about the Neuma tattoo machine and you guys want to tell me down in the comments, please educate me. Or if I even say anything wrong, please correct me and educate me down in the comments. Neuma went a completely different direction than the rest of the industry with how their tattoo machine works. Neuma's whole thing is trying to make a tattoo machine that feels like a coil machine but has the drive and consistency of a rotary machine, so you can have the best of both worlds. Neuma has done tests where they have looked at traditional coil tattoo machine needles puncturing the skin under slow motion cameras. Neuma has compiled all that data and they have shared the results with us. We can see here, this is what they believe the traditional coil machine is doing in slow motion. They believe that the needle is going into the skin for 10% of the needle cycle. So if a full cycle is down and up, down would be 50%, up would be 100%. So the needle is in the skin down for 10% of the needle cycle on a traditional coil machine. If a tattoo machine was 1-to-1, it would be 50% in the skin, 50% in the tube. I'm not refilming that part. I know I kind of messed that wording up a little bit. I'm not refilming that again. And we can see here what they claim is happening with a traditional rotary machine. They say that the needle is going in and it's under the skin for 35% of that needle cycle. Now, if you have a traditional rotary machine with give on your machine, that is going into the skin approximately 40% of the needle cycle. Your needle is spent in the skin, and that is a lot more than a traditional coil machine. Now, Neuma has designed a cam system in a rotary style pen where they have designed it to go all the way down to 20% of the needle cycle being in the skin, which is a lot closer to the 10% needle cycle that a traditional coil machine would have. Neuma is selling us on the idea that less time spent in the skin is actually better. That needle being in the skin for less time allows you to have faster hand movements and staying consistent without the needle snagging. Now, it seems very simple to make a tattoo machine that can do that, but in all reality, there are some engineering challenges that Neuma had to overcome. They actually had to design a cam system that is very unique that no other company is doing. They have designed a waveform cam system that's very special. This is kind of how it works. It goes into the skin right here. We'll see it goes in with a slower insertion speed, so it's not causing extra damage to the skin for no reason. It's being kind of gentle while it's entering the skin, but then it has a fast recoil coming out of the skin very quickly. And because it's a cam that you change on the inside of the machine, they have made cams that have different percentages of time in the skin. Here is a 20% cam, and you can kind of see the waveform profile right here of how it is going into the skin. And the optimal use for this cam is for a liner. They also have a 28% cam, and the optimal use for that is a shader. And you can see right here the waveform profile for that. And they also have a 40%, which is just very, very crazy. I've used it on practice skin, and I'll show you guys later in this video. It is absolutely insane, but you're in the skin for 40% of the time, and they say the optimal use for that one is to be a packer. They also got a 33% cam. I already showed you guys that. They say that that is like a color blender. The 33% is going to be the closest to what a traditional rotary machine feels like. I have this video pulled up on the Neuma's YouTube page, and I have it in slow motion so we can see how all the mechanics on the inside of this machine is working. We will see here that there is a motor up here, and it's attached to this bearing arm. It's called a bearing arm because it is an arm holding a bearing. This is a bearing, and it's rolling up this waveform profile on this cam. That is how they are getting that stroke profile, is because this bearing is pushing up against that waveform, making the cam go down with the drive bar. This is the drive bar. This is the plunger on the needle. So it's rolling up this, going through the waveform cycle, making the needle do that cycle that's on the waveform. Hopefully, hopefully that makes sense. And then we can see right here that there is a spring that is pushing this cam back up into that bearing arm. And then also along with the pressure of the plunger on your needle, that is helping push this cam back up and hold it into place for that bearing arm to come back around so it could do the cycle again. Fully understanding all the accessories and parts to the Neuma 4 is going to better help us understand how the Neuma 5 works and why the Neuma 5 is such a big deal. All right, now this is an accessories chart that I made of everything you can get on the Neuma's website. All right, first off, going left to right, we will see a battery pack right here. So the current ones use an RCA port where you could put a battery pack on it. The new Neuma 5 is actually going to be called the Neuma 5, but there's going to be a version called the Neuma 5 Play, where it actually has a magnetic battery on it, similar to kind of how Bishop does it with their magnetic batteries. And on the new Neuma, you're going to be able to do this. Magnetic battery, take it off, RCA port, magnetic, put it on. Now you can rock your RCA cable if you want. Neuma is currently selling 3 versions of the Neuma 4. We got the Neuma 4 Gen 1, which is the first version that they came out with. And then they came out with the Neuma 4 Modus, which is the exact same as the Neuma 4 Gen 1. The only difference is the ergonomics on the outside. The Neuma 4 Modus has a bigger dial to spin and protrude out your needle, and it has a longer grip and motor housing. And then the other machine that they have is the Neuma 4 Macro. And the only difference from the Macro to the Modus is that the motor on the Macro is bigger, macro as in bigger, and so the motor has more torque. Essentially, the Neuma 4 Modus is for like line work and black and gray shading, color, basically everything. And then the Macro is for like extreme stuff, like huge Japanese traditional back pieces where you have 20 something liners and like 40 something megs and stuff. You're going to want to use the Neuma 4 Macro for those specific things. The Neuma 4 Gen 1 actually has a smaller grip than the two. The Macro and the Modus actually can share grips. The grips will fit between the both of them, but the Gen 1 you'll have to get a specific Gen 1 grip for it. In the Neuma 5, this part is completely different because the machine is actually broken up into 3 parts. The front part, which is going to be the grip and the spring, and there's a housing that holds the spring in the front, not how it is currently in the Neuma 4. It's actually different. It's the housing that holds the spring in the front, and then you're going to have the center part with like the waveform and the cam and the motor and everything, and then you got the back half, which is the battery. So it's completely different on how they're doing it in the Neuma 5. All right, now we're going to be talking about the bearing arms, and there's 2 different bearing arms, and they have very specific purposes. So there is one made out of aluminum and one made out of brass. The aluminum one is lighter and it's a little smaller because it is spinning, and it's going to do a lighter hit on your machine. So your machine is going to hit just a little bit lighter. The aluminum one's actually pretty standard, and then the brass one is actually for a heavier hit. So that bearing arm is going to come swinging around because it's made out of brass, and the shape of it, it's going to actually be swinging harder, pushing the needle harder into the skin. I personally like using the aluminum one for everything, so it's a little lighter hit. just so I can do black and gray shading a little bit better. The aluminum one is great for everything. It's great for black and gray. It's great for line work. It's great for packing color. It's great for doing all that type of stuff. I'd probably use the brass bearing inside of it if I was doing just like color work every single day, like not much black and gray shading, just mostly color, or like blackout sleeves and stuff. I'd probably stick with like the brass bearing. I might be wrong, but as far as I know, these bearings are going to be the exact same in the Neuma 5. Currently, they have like a little scribed like word right here. It says up, and on the bottom it says down. I think they said that they were going to do that a little bit differently to make it look a little more professional, but I am pretty unsure about all that. These might be just the exact same in the Neuma 5. All right, now let's talk about the cams real quick. You could get the cams in a whole bunch of different stroke lengths. You got 2.75 millimeter stroke length, you got the 3.6 millimeter stroke length, and you got the 4.2 millimeter. If you guys do not know what stroke length you prefer, I would suggest everyone just go with the 3.6. That seems pretty standard. It's basically how far you're going to stick your needle out. If you stick your needle out super far, you're going to want a further stroke length so that your needle could come back in and pick up more ink. And then for each one of these stroke lengths, you could get 4 different cams, and they are right here. So you get the 3.6 millimeter stroke length with the 20%, the 28, the 33, and the 40. So there is 4 different cam profiles that you can get with 3 different stroke lengths. That makes 12 different cams. And on the website, when you pick your stroke length, you can pick to get the whole set with all the cams. So you'll just get them all. So like all of these are 3.6 millimeter stroke length. So here's 3, and then we got 1 in the machine. So we got all the stroke profiles for that stroke length. Right here, we can see Carson, the owner of Neuma, actually holding up the cam in the Neuma 5. And right on the right is the cam for the Neuma 4. The Neuma 4, we will see, has these small little teeth to it, and the cam is smaller. And then the Neuma 5 cam is bigger, and it has bigger, stronger teeth on it. And here it is from a side profile. Right here, you can see that it is bigger from the side profile as well. And then all the Neuma machines have 2 different springs in them. They have a soft spring and a hard spring. 99% of people are going to be using the soft spring that comes with the machine. You're only going to want to use the hard spring if your cartridge plunger, like right here, if right here is like super loose. Some companies make cartridges that have a super loose plunger. You're going to want to get the hard spring to compensate for that. Using the hard spring, though, is not good on your tattoo machine, so it's suggested that everyone uses the soft spring. And then lastly, we have a whole bunch of different grips for the Neuma 4. We have the 28, the 33, the 33 shift grip, the 38 millimeter, and the 44 millimeter grip. The shift grip is this one right here, the silver one. It has 2 points on it where you can hold it. You can hold it in the front here, probably better for like line work and stuff. And then you can hold it in the back right here. You can shift your hand to the back. That's why it's called the shift grip. So it's just more painterly, so you can do, you know, better blends and everything. It's Carson's favorite grip. That's why it's a lot of Neuma owners' favorite grips right there. And then there's the 38 and the 40. I really like the 38 millimeter grip. That just looks like the perfect size grip for me. And then the 44 is just for, you know, those crazy people. Woo! That was a lot of information. We do not yet have images of the Neuma 5, but we know that the grip is going to be way different on the Neuma 5 compared to the Neuma 4. Right now, we know that the Neuma 5 is going to have disposable grips. So they're going to make the grip way shorter in the front and make it disposable, because right now, the machine actually has a spring in it, and they're going to remove that spring. They're going to put a housing on the front of this motor bay right here to hold the spring so it's detached from the grip, so that they can do disposable grips, and I'm very excited for that. And the craziest new feature on the Neuma 5 is that you're going to be able to run the motor in reverse. And the reason they're going to be making it so it runs, you know, forward and in reverse is because the waveform here on this cam right here, you're going to be able to use 2 sides of that waveform. So when you run it forward, it could be a 20% cam, and then when you run it backwards, it could be like a 33% cam. So what that's going to do is basically allow you to have like a soft liner, a hard liner, or like a liner and a shader. So that's pretty crazy. With them having the motor being able to go in reverse at any time you select it, means that they will not have to sell as many of these cams, because you get basically 2 cams in one. Currently, the Neuma 4 has a little rod on the inside that actually the teeth on this cam lock into, holding the cam straight so it just goes up and down instead of spins. The Neuma 5 improves on this design, as instead of just having one little rod there, it's going to have 2 rods, and it's going to be super laser welded, and I believe the rods are going to be twice as thick, super strong, so that part cannot break. Out of all the Neuma machines, 2% of them come back for repair, and out of that 2%, 90% of that 2% is because of that little rod on the inside breaking. So it's nice to see that they are going to make it basically unbreakable in the Neuma 5. Now, with all that information I just gave you guys should be fully up to speed with Neuma tattoo machines. I was going to make this second half of the video as a completely separate video, but I think it's just fine to do it right now. I'm going to do an unboxing of the Neuma 4 Modus, and I'm going to give you guys my opinion on all the different cams and everything and how I like the machine. Let's go. All right, first off, Neuma sends all their tattoo machines out in this nice sleek box. All Neuma tattoo machines are pretty customizable on their website. On the back of the box, they list how this one is specifically customized that Justin picked out to send to us. Innovate, create, empower. We're going to take out the machine, we're going to set it off to the side, and we will get to that in just a second. Our tattoo machine came with 4 cams, all in 3.6 stroke length. It came in a 20% waveform profile that is inside of the tattoo machine, and then we got a 28%, a 33%, and a 40% all in this nice carrying case. And we got this bottle of machine lube. Anytime you replace the cams inside the machine, you're going to want to lube the cams and the bearing arm. Speaking about the bearing arm, they include an Allen key to remove it and replace it on your machine. All of the manuals are digital online, so that is everything in this box. Now let's get a closer look at this tattoo machine. I love the copper color and finish that Justin decided to go with. To protrude out your needle and to remove the grip, you spin this dial on the back. Right away, we're going to notice a spring located on the inside of the grip. The spring is a unique mechanic that holds the cam back down against the bearing arm when it's spinning. I'd like to state right now that that spring is one of the most frustrating parts on this machine. Now, it's not very common, but you could run into situations where that spring will actually come out of your grip. To fix this, you want to drop it down into the grip, you put your finger down into the spring, and you spin it a little bit clockwise, and it will lock back into your grip. I believe the Neuma 5, when that comes out, it has improved on this mechanic. Next, we'll see the cam and the motor assembly. First off, I would like to point out this guide rod on the side right here. This rod is laser welded to the inside of the machine. It's the rod that guides the cam to go up and down. That guide rod aligns perfectly with the grooves here on your cam. You do not want to run your tattoo machine without a cartridge in it, because that can cause a lot of friction on the inside, breaking that guide rod. The Neuma 5 is once again going to improve on this mechanic by adding a second guide rod that is multiple times stronger. This is the aluminum bearing sold separately on their website. To remove the brass bearing that's pre-installed, you're going to want to use your Allen key in this hole, lining up with the grub screw, removing the grub screw to remove the bearing. Here is a view of the motor shaft. You'll see 3 screws here. If this was my tattoo machine, I would remove those screws and I would show you the inside of the machine, but I'm not going to do that in this video because this is not my tattoo machine, and doing so might void your warranty. Your bearing arms are labeled down and up, so you know which way to put them in your machine. Put your bearing arm onto the motor shaft and tighten the screw the same way you took it off, but opposite. After you're done with all that, make sure you apply lube to the motor shaft, the bearing arms bearing, and apply lube in the hole of the cam and to the tip of the drive bar. There's a lot of parts moving inside this tattoo machine, so it's best if you lube them all up to prevent any friction. Now, this is a loud tattoo machine, so I'm putting the microphone close to it so we can listen. This tattoo machine is running on a 9-volt system, so it's very important that we do not put this tattoo machine over the recommended 9 volts. You want to make sure if you're using a battery on the tattoo machine that the battery's jumpstart mode does not jump up past 9 volts. I'm using the TOURQUE battery right here. The highest voltage that this goes with the jumpstart is 9 volts. The machine is loud simply because of the mechanics on the inside and how that spring on the inside does not have much sound dampening around it. One of those things, if you don't like noisy tattoo machines, this machine might not be for you. If you're coming from coil machines, this machine actually sounds a bit quieter than that. But I would like to state that the noise of the machine is something you get used to over time. Now I'm going to show you guys some of the results that I got tattooing on some practice skin with the Neuma 4 Modus tattoo machine. I want to state that I use straight black for all my tests using this, the solid ink lining black. All right, guys, so I just used the Neuma on this practice skin, and I guess I want to just give you my free flowing thoughts real quick while I'm doing all the practicing or testing on this. So I just tested, you know, the 20%, the 28%, the 33, the the 40 all with the aluminum bearing arm, which the aluminum bearing arm is supposed to be just like the standard hit, like how strong the needle is hitting the skin. That is what the bearing arm is doing. And then I just used the brass one real quick, and the brass one it's a bigger bearing arm, and it's making the needle hit the skin harder. So, and you can feel it. I could feel all the difference in all these different, you know, I don't know what these are called right now. I'll know by the time I do the review, but right now in the middle of this, I don't know. This is the waveform, you know, these are the different cams, I guess. Yeah, cams. That's what Neuma is calling them, I guess. It's cams. And the one I liked the most was the 20%, the one I started with. I was able to do line work without wrecking the skin or anything. Like there's no tearing or anything in this, and it just felt so good, you know, going in and everything. And then and also the black and gray, it was just, you could actually get different gradients with your black and gray. It was, as you can see here, it's harder to get gradients with black and gray with other cams. So, and then with the 40%, this is the craziest one. So the percentage is, you know, the needle time in the skin. So 20%, the needle is in the skin, protruding out, you know, you're injecting ink, you know, for 20% of the time. The 40%, that needle is in the skin for almost, you know, half the time. So it's a lot of time in the skin, and you definitely feel it. I don't really know how to explain how you feel it. It feels like you're just stuck in the skin. It's not really snagging. It's more like it's just, you know, stuck in the skin. And then I actually pulled a line right here, guys. And yeah, the line looks crispy or whatever, but it actually went right through. Like, you guys do not want to. And I mean, I see a little bit of damage with all the other line work other than the 20%. But the 40% definitely do not line with the 40%. I'd actually say don't line with, you know, the 28, the 33, the 40. The 20% with the brass bearing arm for line work actually felt really good. You just got to go a little quicker, and it was a little harder to get, you know, the blends with it. But I mean, honestly, the bearing arms themselves, you know, these little things right here, you know, this is the aluminum one. I got the bearing one in, the brass one in right now, because I was just testing that right now. They honestly don't make that much of a difference, you know. they don't. And but going between these wheels right here, they make a big difference. I mean, if you go from the 20 to the 28 right away, you might notice a little bit of a difference. But if you go from the 20 to the 40%, holy crap, there's a huge difference. I wouldn't even use the 40%. I think that's more of like a flex that they're doing. You know, like I don't even think I would use this for anything. I think I would use the 33 for packing large areas of color. Like if you have to do like a blackout sleeve or something, I would say use the 33% aluminum arm. I haven't tried the brass one yet, actually, but I'm sure the brass one would be awesome also for packing straight black. I just, with this percentage thing, guys, I'm scared to overwork the skin. You know, you're injecting ink, you know, that needle's in the skin. Obviously, it's supposed to do less damage to the skin, but I don't know. It's one of those things you're going to have to see in practice when you're actually working on real people's skin, you know, and how it comes back. I'm sure they're going to come back healed good, because the needle is actually making less holes in the skin, but injecting more ink, or that's the theory at least. I only have practice skin today. I don't have real skin, and I only got this machine for, you know, one more day, and then I have to send it back. So I like the 20% for black and gray. You know, that's just the best all around. I actually like, you know, like packing felt good with that. This feels like the most standard, you know, like what you would be used to with like all machines. Probably let me put it in the camera so you guys can see what I'm saying. But this feels like most machines. The 28, I put 26 here, and I tried to switch it to 28. The 28 might actually be really good for color. The problem is I just didn't feel too much of a difference between these two. And it was one of these things where when I started, because this machine is so loud, let me run it real quick. Like, because this machine is so loud, it almost feels like a muscle car, you know, and you can feel everything, you know, and you hear the difference, you know, in the needle when it's touching the skin. I don't know if you guys hear that or not, but so I was running in lower voltages here, but by the time you know, I got through the test. By the time I just did this here, I'm running at like 7.4, 7.5 voltage now. When I started, I was at like 6.5. So it's one of those things, you get used to the noise and then you turn it up, and because we're snagging in the 40% right here, I turned it up like a lot. I think I was at like 7.8, you know, voltage, which is a lot for this tattoo machine. This tattoo machine does not go, it's only a 9-volt motor, so it does not go over 9 volts. So yeah, I was hauling, you know, my machine was up really, really high for this 40%, just because I did not want it to snag in the skin. I was trying to get like a smoother blend, which is weird because you would think you would go slower with something like this, but no, you got to go faster. But yeah, that's just my free flowing thoughts right now. Let's go back to Adam that actually knows what he's talking about. Thank you once again, Justin Reid, for sending me the Neuma 4 Modus tattoo machine to check out. Now, Justin sent us that tattoo machine just for this review. I actually just went to the post office and I shipped it right back to him. If anyone at home has a tattoo machine that you guys like a lot and that's pretty popular and you guys own it and you guys want to ship it to me, feel free to hit me up on Instagram and I'll make a full review video like this one on your machine. I'm definitely going to miss having the Neuma 4 Modus tattoo machine on me. That tattoo machine feels amazing. I'm very excited for the Neuma 5 Play tattoo machine, and I'm definitely going to be picking that up. Like, comment, and subscribe. Bye-bye.